is laid down by the Rollback Malaria, RBM, and partner organizations in the global effort to combat malaria. The purpose is to give countries in affected regions the chance to learn from each other's experiences and support one another's efforts. The day gives a chance for malaria-free countries to learn about the devastating consequences of the disease and for new donors to join a global partnership. The global theme this year was Ready to Beat Malaria, while the local theme that Uganda celebrated the day under was My Mosquito Net, My Nighttime Weapon. So let's talk malaria this evening, and in the studio with me is Dr. Jimmy Opigo, who is the Program Manager, National Malaria Control Program. A very warm welcome to the program.
Thank you and good evening.
Dr. Opigo, I think it was last year, was it January this year, and Uganda was mentioned among the 9 African countries that are doing very well in the commitment to fight against malaria. How are we doing now?
We have made a lot of progress. Deaths due to malaria in the last 2 years reduced by 1,000. Okay. But it is still bad enough because we still lose 5,100 people per year. In terms of interventions, we have almost covered all our people with nets.
Well, I'm going to come to the mosquito nets. I just wanted to know how we're doing so far. Now, we've been mentioned, we've been congratulated on how well we're doing, but then I read that malaria is still one of the primary causes of deaths in Uganda. So we have about 70,000 to 100,000 people dying each year. How is that?
Malaria still remains #1 killer, especially in Africa, Uganda inclusive. In fact, in Uganda, it accounts for almost 10% of deaths. Yet this is something which is preventable, easily diagnosed and treatable. The problem of the deaths arises mostly from late seeking of care and inability for people to protect themselves, especially the vulnerable groups, not adults like me and you. And that is where our message for this year is premised.
Which are the vulnerable groups?
The vulnerable groups are children, especially those under 5, because they have not yet built immunities. When you get repeated malaria, eventually you build some immunities. But also pregnant mothers, because in pregnancy you lose immunity to most conditions. And
you'd actually mentioned the people from places like Kabale, and because they don't normally, get malaria.
Sure. Highlands like Kabale area, Ruenzori, and a bit of Elgon.
Yes.
They have very low malaria, so even right now we are experiencing some outbreak there. But Kampala is also following suit, because at the moment there's very low transmission in Kampala. So progressively people will lose immunities. And that will now require more protection, early testing, early seeking of care.
Do you think that Ugandans just do not have the information that you people have? Because we hear somebody speak about her surviving malaria and it becomes the malaria survivor, and there's a joke and everybody's laughing about it online. Are we just not aware of how dangerous this is, or are we comfortable now that we know that we're safe?
And that is the comfort zone we want to get ourselves out of. Ugandans take malaria very simple, partly because it affects children and no one advocates for them.
Yeah.
For that group it is very serious. It's a matter of life and death. And if you survive, you are left with long-term damage, both cognitive and physical. You have seen people who get, after like cerebral malaria, who get those long-term damages. Some very obvious, which you can see, but the cognitive ones, they will not be smart in school. In future, they will not be able to be versatile like others. So this is not seen. And what the lady Webster is doing is to highlight that this is a dangerous thing. And to get, especially the world where she lives, to keep commitment to this issue. Because for her case, she was without diagnosis for over 10 days. Fortunately, being a celebrity, she was maintained on life support.
Wow.
But here we cannot be maintained on life support. She would have been gone. But she has remained with the kidney damage. She's living with the kidney damage.
Is there a possibility that somebody who has been who has had immunity can lose that immunity?
Sure. When we, for example, immigrate and live in a place which is malaria free for a very long time, when you come back, you lose immunities. So as part of travel medicine, and this affects our tourism here, Most of our visitors actually are taking daily tablets to cover them up.
Even the Ugandans.
Yeah.
How are we doing with the mosquito net distribution? And this will be my final question to you.
We have done well. We have given out 26 million nets, but now we are moving to the next step. Accessing people with the nets is the first step.
The quality of the nets?
The quality is perfect, is certified. What is now needed is the use. The benefit accrues from consistent use, and we like to encourage people, parents especially, now this is night time, to tuck the kids in.
Why are we insisting on just mosquito nets?
It is not the only fight against malaria, but we are calling it your nighttime weapon, because when you are sleeping you are unable to protect yourself. When you are still awake you can chase them off. But apart from mosquito nets, we are encouraging people to keep a clean compound, to close windows, and I know you do this every evening. The house help closes the window, you spray. So we need a combination method. But also, if all this fails and you get fevers, should be tested and treated early before it complicates, because when it complicates the outcome can be bad.
Right. Well, thank you very much, Dr. Jimmy Opigo, for taking the time to speak with us.
Sure. And thank you for keeping on supporting us to communicate with the public.
We do our best. Our health is everybody's responsibility. And that was Newsnight.